So now we are going to study a new topic of discussion. Now what is this topic about? Now imagine that I have a lot of data with me in the databases. I have data related to the bank accounts of the employees which are there, such as their name, their Aadhaar card, their PAN card, their security pin details, their email IDs which I use, their official accounts which is there, their account numbers which are there, balance, and the salary details which is there. Now, when I'm sending it to a person, when I'm giving the access of the data to any person, I don't want to give all the information related to that particular employee. I want to restrict the information, which means I don't want to show all the records, all the rows, all the columns to the person. I just want to show certain limited set of records. That is the first thing which I wanted to do. Secondly, I don't want the person to whom I'm sharing the data should apply any changes or modify my existing data or my base table over there. At that particular instance, what I should do to avoid or apply this level of security. In order to get this level of security, I would definitely create something called as views. Now, views is our topic of discussion for today. Now, what are views? If you can understand views in simple English term, view means to see. Now, what I'm going to see? I'm going to see the data. Now, I'm going to see only that data which is provided to me. I'm not going to see the entire table over here. So, I can view only the data which is possibly shown to me. Now, when I'm viewing, you all must be knowing of virtual reality. Now, what's virtual reality? It's something which is virtually available, but I cannot physically mention or I cannot physically handle it over there. So, views are also known as virtual tables. What is a virtual tables? Which means I can query the data. I can see the data, but I want to physically store the data. I want to physically make the changes to the data that would not be possibly available. That are views in SQL. Now, let's try to deep dive into what is views, how the views are created, and what are the views, what are the advantages, and what are the different types of views which we will see and which we will use over here. So, when I talk upon views in SQL, as I said, they are popularly known as what? Known as virtual tables. Now, view is a virtual table whose contents are defined by a query, which means I will make sure that what amount of data and what level of data to be shown or to be shared with the individual. So it will be defined by the query. So it will be defined that what contents or what amount of data to be shared to the individual in the form of view. As I've said, view is nothing but a virtual table. It's logically available to me, not physically available over here. So it consists of set of named columns. As I said, I have n number of details related to the employees. So I want to share only details related to the name, the location, the department to belong to, and their performance details. I don't want to share their Aadhaar card details, PAN card, the account details, the PIN number which these guys have set for their account, because that is a confidentiality information which I have and I don't want the other person to see it. So it consists of named columns, that how many columns I want to share, and set of rows into the data. Let's say I want to share details related to the only employees belonging to IT department. So I can do it over there. I can limit my data to the rows which I want to share over here, which comes from table referenced in a query. Now, when I write a query, definitely this query would be collecting data from a table. So views are created from a base table, which means I have or I need to have a table first in order to create a view. So the result of a view is produced dynamically. Now, what is the meaning of dynamically? Every time I call a view, the query, the code which I have written would be executed n number of times. So the result of a view is produced dynamically when the view is referenced, when the view is referred to a table. So, unlike Unlike tables, views do not store the data. As I've said, it's a virtual table. What is the meaning of virtual table? It's visibly available to me, but it's not physically available to me. What is the meaning of physically? It will not capture any memory for its storage. So they act as a filter on the underlying tables referenced in a view. Views can be used to focus and simplify and customize the user perception of the database, which means how the user wants to see the data, how the user wants to share the data to the person to view it. The views can be created and customized in that particular manner. They can also be used as security mechanism. As I said, views only give read-only access. What is the meaning of read-only access? Which means just read my data, but don't allow the updates to happen over there. So the security would be maintained. For example, to grant user access of the data through the view without directly accessing the underlying base table. As I said, when I am sharing the employee's details, which I want to share to an individual to work upon, I don't want to share the account number, Aadhaar card, PAN card details from the base table. So I will share a view which will have limited set of information and not share the actual table which I have with me related to the employees. So if you can see in the image, there are multiple tables, and when there is a view, it is a combination of all the multiple tables based on the restrictions which I give over there. So this is how a view is created, a view is stored. Now, what are certain benefits of creating view? It creates data abstraction. Now, what is the meaning of data abstraction? View allows user to interact, which means to talk with the data without the data directly accessing, which means it will not take the actual data over here. It will only take the view query which is being mentioned. So views allows to interact the data without directly accessing the underlying tables. I'll not take the underlying or the base table directly. It will just help me to get the query related information from the main table, providing a layer of abstraction, or I can call it as a layer of security or amount of content to be shown into my outcome. Security. Views can be used to restrict the access to specific columns or rows. As I said, I don't want all the employee details to be shown. I want only limited set of records to be shown over here, ensuring that user only sees the data with an authorized to a view, which is being provided to a view. Simplified queries. Now, if I want to combine data from multiple tables and show it at once in a view, I can definitely do it. So I don't have to write the complex queries again and again. I can write the query and store it in a form of view. So views simplify complex queries by encapsulating the logic within a view, that is encapsulating, storing them within a view, making it easier for the user to retrieve the required information again and again instead of writing the big and the complex queries over here. So this is what the benefits of the view is there. But how does a view looks like? How do we actually create it? And what is the syntax for the same? Let's try to understand it over here. Now, when I go over here, I will be going to classic models as a database, which we all have used earlier. I have given the access related to the classic models database, which is there. I have n number of tables, which is there. So let's say show tables from classic models. As the database selected is classic models, and you can see I have n number of tables. I have views created over here earlier. Let me drop all the views over here. So I can drop a view. Let me drop and let me create again for you. Drop. I'll drop this. And I'll drop this view. So I don't have any views created. And when I run this, now it will not show me that average employees and many more things. Why? Because it was a view, it was a virtual table created. So when a view is created, what all things are important over here? First of all, I need a base table. Now, what is a base table? From where a view is going to be created, from where the query is going to be stored. Now remember one thing, as I said, views are virtual tables, so they are not storing the outcome physically over there, but definitely they will store a query with a name, and that query will be executed in number of times. So I'll do tables. Over here I have those tables. Now what is the question? This statement uses create view statement to create a view that represents total sales per order. Means how many were the total sales created by per order. But before going to this complex example over here, let me help you to understand a view with a very simple example. So select star from, I have multiple tables over here if you can see. Let me take data from customers table. Now when a customer is enrolling to any e-commerce platform, now classic models has data related to multiple queries which are there. Can you see it has data related to the customers phone number, address line to city, postal code, sales representative, and the credit limit of the customer. Now when I am sharing this with other person to see the data over there, definitely, I don't want to show the phone number of the employee, of the customer over here. I don't want to show the credit limit of the customer. So I will not have all the data to be shown as an outcome. I want to restrict the columns. What I don't want to show? I don't want to show phone number. I don't want to show the credit limit over here. So I don't want to show those records which are there. So and that is a restriction which I want to apply for columns. Now imagine that I don't want to show all the customer details. Now the client or the person who is handling my data is handling customers from Las Vegas. So I want to show only those customers who are residing or where the city is Las Vegas. So I just wanted to show that into a view. So when I do select star from customers, it is showing me all the data. Now I want to restrict my data to the user when it is being shared. So what I want over here is customer number. Let's say I want the customer name. I don't want the customer first name and last name because first name and last name is confidential. The customer name is the shop name which is there, and I want the shop name to be shared over here. I don't want the phone numbers to be shared. I don't want the address line of the customers to be shared because this is something confidential. So I want the city to be mentioned, but the city should only be Las Vegas. I want the state of the person to be mentioned. I want the postal code to be mentioned, but let's say in order to maintain the confidentiality, if you don't want postal code, you can restrict over there. So postal code is something which is required. So I've written a postal code. It depends on you how you want to do it. Now country to from which the customer belongs, and the sales representative employee number, that is who was the employee who has handled this customer over here. So this is the data which I wanted to show in the outcome. Now you saw that I am not going to show all the columns over here. I'm going to restrict with respect to certain columns. So column level security is what I have added over here. What amount of security I want to add in the rows, that is the city should be Las Vegas. So I want to show only those customers coming from a city known as Las Vegas. So earlier I have applied a column level security, which means only specific columns are shown in the outcome. Now I'm adding a row level security because a row based condition is what I wanted to show to the data over there. So I'll write where it is there, where I can say city is what Las Vegas over here. So how many employees are there, or how many customers are there from Las Vegas? One. So I want to show only this detail to the employee or to the person to whom I'm sharing the data. So this is a security which I have added. Let's say I don't want to show city as Las Vegas, but I want to share the data only for the customers belonging from a country as USA. So I'll apply a row level security again. What is the row level security which I'm adding? That the customer should belong from what? From USA. And this many customers are belonging from what? USA, which is there. So here if you can see the data, it's completely what? It is completely having restrictions. Not all columns are shown, so column level security is added. Not all rows are shown, so row level security is added. So I want this query to be shared with an individual, which means the result of this query to be shared with an individual ahead. So I want this to be stored within a view. So how a view is created? The syntax for view is very easy. Now, how does the syntax for view happens? So let me write the syntax first and let me replicate that syntax into the query, and then let us solve the questions which I have mentioned over here. So what I'll write? I'll write the syntax. Syntax is a generic representation of your query. What I'm writing, I'm creating something. You all must be knowing DDL commands. Now DDL, data definition language. I'm creating a structure to be shown in the outcome, but I'm not storing that structure. So I'll write something called as create, because there is something created within my database server. So create. I do want to create what? I want to create view. Now, many people what they do, create view and they will write as over here, and then they will start writing the select statement which they want to store in a view. But definitely this view which is being shared, which means the query which is being shared, will be having certain name. So view name is very important over here. So view name, and then I'll write as a keyword, because this view will be stored as what? This name will be having what? So I'll write as. And then you will write your select statement over here. So select star from table, and then you will write multiple things. Your query will end, and the view is definitely created over here. So this is a generic syntax of creating what? A view. So let me create the view on the query which we have written. So I want to create a view named something. Let us name something over here. So I'll write create view, and I'll write the name as something. Now definitely the view will not be created with something as a name in a real world. I'm just showing it as an example. So I'm writing name as something, and I'll write as. Now what does this as will consist over here? This as will consist of queries. So this as will consist of what? Consist of a query. And this is how a view is created. So can you see the syntax? Create view. I'm written create view. The name of the view is something for me, and this view will be represented as what? It will be represented by the query over here. So when I execute it, it is done. There is no error, which means the view is created. Usually when the views are created, it doesn't give error. But when the views are executed, it does give the error, which is there. So here we have created a view. Now, how do we execute a view? So how do we execute a view? So execute a view, which means I want to see what is being stored in a view. I want to see how the view looks like. So when you see views are not shown, just refresh it. You can see a view is created, and I named the view as something. So the view name is something. So how do I call a view, or I see the data which is stored within a view? Now, this is also one question which many candidates do fail. Why? Because they think, oh, something different is created. Should I use call as a word? Because stored procedures are called by call. View is what? It's a virtual table. It's your table itself. So you have to call very similar to the table. So the syntax for calling a view would be select star from, but not the table name which you have used within a view, but the name which you have set for the view. So what is the name which I have set? Something. So when I run this, you can see I can get the data which is stored in something as a view. I can then filter it out where, let's say, I know the city is NYC. So I can filter out the view which is there. So definitely I can filter out the view which is being stored over here. So I can get the data from this. So when I want to run this query, execute this query, I didn't have to run this part again and again. I just write something which is representing the query. So the query is stored with a name known as something. So one thing to remember, views does not store the data physically, it will store the data logically. That means that it will store the query, not the actual data over here. So I can filter out the data from my views however I want. So this is a view which we have created so far. Now if I try to update a data in a view, as I said, it will apply a security over here. So let me show you. Let me have this data. If you can see, it is there. Let's say I want to change the customer name where the city is New York and the sales representative number is 1323. So you all must be knowing the query for updating. So update. So I will write update. Which table? Now my table name is something over here. And I'll write set. I want to set the customer name. So customer name from this. I want to set the customer name, let's say Toyland over here. Where I definitely have a criteria. What is a where condition? Where the city is NYC and the sales representative employee number is 1323. This is what I have. So sales rep employee number which is there, and I execute it. If you can see a view over here, there are changes which are created. So if you can see the data, so if I do select star from something which is there, and then I do NYC where city is equals to NYC, the update has happened over here because I have not applied some criteria to not mention or not update the data. So it has updated the views which are there.